Hello students, this video has been prepared to teach the certificate course in sports nutrition students organized by Sports Authority of India. To introduce about myself, I am Dr. Jahnavi Dande, working as sports physician and scientific officer at Netaji Subhash National Institute of Sports, Patiala. In this lecture, titled First Aid in Sports, you will be learning about first aid for various cuts and wounds, first aid for fractures, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, that is done in an unconscious person or an unconscious athlete, and first aid for environmental hazards like heat illnesses and cold illnesses. To begin with, let us learn about skin wounds. What is a wound? A wound is any type of injury to the skin. It's of two types, open wounds and closed wounds. What are open wounds? In open wounds, the skin is cracked open, leaving the underlying tissue exposed to the outside environment, which makes it more vulnerable to bleeding as well as infections. Because what happens in an open wound, the blood vessels will be cut and the inside organs will be exposed. This results in bleeding, as well as because the skin is open now, internal organs are exposed, there is a chance of infections also. In closed wound, what happens? The skin will be intact and the underlying tissue is not directly exposed to the outside. So in this figure you can see the closed wound where skin is intact and there is a discoloration because of bleeding inside the or below the skin. So contusion is an example of a closed wound. If the bleeding is more, then it is called hematoma. Let us look into the common types of open wounds seen in sports. You have abrasions, lacerations, incised wounds and puncture wounds, out of which abrasions are more common, followed by lacerations. So what are they? Incised wound or incision, it is caused by a clean sharp edged object such as a knife, a razor or a glass splinter. You can see in fencing we use weapons. So a weapon used in fencing also can cause an incised wound. Or in case of boxing, boxer if he punches over the forearm, over the eyebrow or over the forehead, then there will be a cut. These are all examples of incised wounds. Then lacerations. These are irregular tear-like wounds caused by some blunt object. So a blunt object causes a laceration. Commonly you can see in a forceful punch from an opponent in case of boxing, or any hit with a rod or something like that. This can be seen in sports. Abrasions. These are the superficial wounds in which the topmost layer of the skin is scraped off. Abrasions are often caused by sliding fall onto a rough surface. So abrasions are the superficial wounds wherein epidermis is injured, whereas in lacerations they are the deep wounds where both epidermis as well as dermis of the skin gets injured. Then looking into the puncture wounds. These are caused by an object puncturing the skin, such as a splinter, a nail or a needle. So puncture wounds are very deep but their surface is very little. So if you see from outside it will be very small but they will be deep. In sports we can see usually punctured wounds when an athlete is sprinting and suddenly he has got injured with his spike of the shoe. Shoe spikes, nails of the shoe, then studs, all these will cause the punctured wounds in athletes. Apart from this, there are other types of wounds like avulsions, penetrating wounds, gunshot wounds, but these are not that common in sports. Now let us learn about the first aid for open wounds. First aid for open wounds can be given in 3 steps. First thing is stop the bleeding. Second thing is clean the wound. And the third thing is close the wound. Before stopping the bleeding or before initiating first aid, what you should do? You should wear gloves. Why you have to wear gloves? To protect yourself. To protect yourself from touching their blood and thus touching the and thus getting the infections. So once you wear gloves, then what you should do? You should stop the bleeding. How? Minor cuts and scrapes, usually they stop bleeding on their own because of the clotting ability of the blood. If they don't, like if the cut is little bit deeper, then you have to apply gentle pressure with a clean cloth or bandage. Hold the pressure continuously for 20 to 30 minutes and if possible, if you can, then elevate the wound. Elevation, what it does? It reduces the flow of blood and it can help in holding the bleeding or stopping the bleeding. Then the second step is cleaning the wound. How to clean the wound? Rinse the wound with clean tap water, or if you have normal saline, you can use a normal saline or distilled water, anything that is available. If after cleaning, if you think that the dirt or the debris is not gone and if it still remains, then you can use tweezers or something like plucker cleaned with alcohol to remove this debris and dust particles. That is also very important, especially if an athlete falls in the mud and if his wound contains lot of mud particles. After that, you have to clean the area around the wound using soap, a liquid soap and a washcloth, or you can use Savlon, anything that is available. So you should remember one thing, first you have to clean the wound followed by cleaning the surrounding area. Then the third step is cover the wound. If the bleeding stops, you can cover the wound with a clean dressing and bandage. Sometimes the bleeding may not stop even after applying pressure for 20 to 30 minutes. Then what you should do? The bleeding definitely slows down and still you have to apply the bandage. What is a dressing? A dressing is a sterile pad or a compress used to cover wounds, to control bleeding and prevent further contamination. So you do dressing so that further dust particles will not be attracted and caught up on the wound. A dressing should be large enough to totally cover the wound with a safety margin on all sides beyond the wound. So, a dressing should be larger than your wound and it should cover all the margins, that you should remember. A bandage, after putting the dressing, then you have to cover it with the bandage. It is nothing but securing the dressing in place and applying pressure to bleed the wounds. To the bleeding wounds. So, a bandage should be tied firmly, not too tightly, not too loose, so that it gives a continuous compression effect till you take the player to the hospital. So, you should do the 3 steps. You should follow the 3 steps in an order. First, you should wear gloves, followed by stop the bleeding, clean the wound and then cover the wound to prevent to give first aid for the open wounds. Now let us look into how to provide first aid for the closed wounds or sports injuries. Most of the sports injuries occur to the soft tissues. They can be provided, first aid can be provided to those injuries by means of, you can remember this by means of a mnemonic called PRICE or police. PRICE stands for protection, rest, icing, compression and elevation. Recently it has been modified and rest has been replaced by optimum loading, that is OL of the police. So let us look into them in the next slides. Why should you protect the injured area? Protection of the injured area is to prevent from getting further injury, to prevent the part from getting more injury or from worsening of the injury. How do you give protection? By means of splinting, padding, or ready-made orthotic devices are also available. R stands for rest. Relative rest has to be given. That is, the part which is injured has to be given rest and the person can move the other parts of the body. So how you have to give rest? You have to cease the activity temporarily, and you should not immobilize the part for a prolonged period because that reduces the range of motion and it prevents the atrophy also. So that's why you have to immobilize for a minimum period or a limited period which is advised. This is mainly for sports injuries. Nowadays, what's the concept is optimum loading. That is, the athlete's injured part can be loaded as much as he can tolerate it. If he is getting pain, then you should not load to such extent. But in pain-free range, you can load it. This is especially for the sports injuries, not for the skin injury. The next is I. I stands for icing. So what does icing do? Icing decreases the swelling, decreases the pain, it decreases the redness. All the signs of inflammation will be reduced by icing. Then how to apply the ice? It is for 15 to 20 minutes, 4 to 5 times a day, depending on the severity. If your injury is more severe, then you can apply ice more frequently, even once every 2 hours. It has to be given continuously, initially for 72 hours. Compulsorily, you should give icing in case of any sports injury, closed injury for 72 hours minimum. And icing has to be given in a container or in a bag, but it should not be given directly. That you should remember. Icing has to be followed by compression. Compression can be done in a crepe bandage or in an ordinary pressure bandage or some orthotic ready-made braces. So what does compression do? It again reduces swelling and it immobilizes the damaged joint. Nowadays, a new device has come which can simultaneously provide compression. At the same time, it can give the effect of cryotherapy or the icing. This is called cryocompression unit, which is commonly used in sports nowadays. Then the fifth step is elevation. E stands for elevation. Elevation has to be done for the extremities especially. For lower limb, you can elevate the limb above the chest level in a lying down position as depicted in the pictures below. And for the upper limb, you can elevate the upper limb in a arm pouch or a pouch arm sling, etc., which you can see in the last picture. So all these compression, icing, elevation, all these will reduce the inflammation that occurs just after the injury. So all the inflammation in the acute inflammatory phase, these methods will help the athlete to prevent aggravation of the injury. Now let us look into the first aid for fractures. Fractures are nothing but a break in the continuity of the bone. That is a break in the bone. If a bone breaks, you call it as a fracture. There are two types of fractures, just like skin wounds, open fractures and closed fractures. Open fractures are the bone will be torn and at the same time skin above the bone or skin overlying the bone will also be injured. Whereas in a closed fracture, only the bone will be lost, but the bone will be injured, but the skin will be intact. How do you provide first aid to fractures? But before that, you have to identify whether the fracture has occurred or not. The important signs which tell us that fracture has occurred is a deformity. and crepitus. If the athlete depicts these two signs, then you can consider it as a fracture. So first thing what you should do after you are suspecting a fracture is don't move the person except if necessary to avoid further injury. Stop any bleeding. If it is an open fracture, you have to stop the bleeding. And if it is a closed fracture, then right away you can immobilize the injured area. How to immobilize? By applying a splint to the area above and below the fractured sides. In this picture you can see a fracture of the foot can be immobilized by applying the splint. What is a splint? A splint is a firm object or material such as a stick, board, or even rolled up newspapers, a rolled blanket, or any clothing. Anything can be used for a splint. Whichever is available with you, you can use that. But it should be firm. It should not be too soft. If it is firm, then it can immobilize or help in immobilizing the part. Or sometimes you can also even tape. So in the last picture you can see this is called buddy taping. Here what the person has done, he has injured his index finger. Then it has to be strapped along with the middle finger so that now the index finger will not move. How to apply splint? Splints must be well padded on the sides touching the body. They have to be adjusted according to the contour of the leg or the injured part. If they are not properly padded, they will not fit well and will not adequately immobilize the injured part. That means your purpose will not be served. Before applying splint, open wounds must be covered as we have already discussed. We have to immobilize this foot in the injured part in the position found. You should not manipulate it or you should not try to rectify it. A basic rule of splinting is that the joint above and below the broken bone should be immobilized to protect the fracture site. That means you have to immobilize. For example, if your forearm is injured, you have to immobilize the wrist joint which is below the forearm and the elbow joint which is above the forearm. Both joints have to be immobilized so that the injured bone will not move. Similarly, if you have injured your leg, you have to immobilize the ankle as well as the knee joint. So in the next slide you can see certain splinting positions. Here you see in figure A, it is the splinting technique for a forearm fracture. In figure B, it is the splinting technique for the upper arm fracture. In figure C, the lower leg fracture. He has been immobilized his ankle as well as the knee joint. If it is a thigh fracture, then entire hip joint as well as the knee joint has to be immobilized as shown in figure 4. Nowadays, ready-made splints are being made available in the market. Like for example, you can see in the pictures a finger cord splint, cock-up splint, mallet finger splint and ulnar gutter splint. There are many other frog splint, many other splints which can be used as a first aid for fractures. Now let us learn about the first aid for an unconscious athlete. If an athlete suddenly falls down on the ground without being hit or without any contact, then you have to think it as a sudden cardiac arrest. That means the heart stopped functioning. So what you should do? First you have to assess, then you have to provide the resuscitation. That is what is called cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Or with a special device nowadays used in sports, that is AED, automated external defibrillator, you can provide the first aid. Means this device produces some shocks and these shocks can make the heart functioning again. So how to assess the unconscious athlete? First is what is the first step that you should do? You have to remove him from the field. You have to check his circulation. It is remembered by the mnemonic CAB. Assess circulation first, followed by airway and then breathing. So circulation means you have to check the pulse. Which pulse you have to check? That is the carotid pulse at the side of the neck. You check for the pulse for 10 seconds, not more than 10 seconds. If you feel it, it's okay. If you don't feel the pulse within 10 seconds, then immediately you have to start the chest compressions. That is, you have to start the CPR. Then if the circulation is okay, you can assess the airway and you have to assess the breathing. All these assessment has to be done very quickly and within a short period of time, because CPR has to be initiated as early as possible if an athlete is unconscious and doesn't have pulse. So here are some steps advised by the American Heart Association. First, what you should do, you should tap him whether he is awake or not, and then you have to call for help. And once you have called for help, then you have to check the circulation and you have to check for breathing or only gasping, whether the type of breathing you have to assess. And then if the breathing is, you feel that he is gasping, or if there is no breathing, then you have to start the compressions. 30 compressions followed by 2 breaths. And repeat this. You have to repeat this till the AED arrives, or till the ambulance arrives, or the person regains the pulse. So these are the few steps. What you have to do? You have to do compressions followed by 2 breaths. Then you have to check for airway and breathing. So I have given one video. You can go through that video lecture which tells all the steps of the CPR. This was done by FIFA and I have already given that to you. You can go through that. So how to give chest compressions? They have to given at a rate of 100 to 120 per minute, not less than 100 per minute. And the depth for adults, it should be at least 2 inches, that is 5 centimeters, but not greater than 6 centimeters. And you should allow full recoil of the chest. These are the few things which you should remember while providing the compressions. Then airway. Airway, you have to assess the airway by means of 2 maneuvers. One is head tilt and chin lift, so that the airway is now clear. Or if you can't find airway, then you have to do a maneuver called jaw thrust, wherein you will catch hold of both the lower jaw and then you have to give a thrust so that the airway will be opened now. Once the airway is opened, you can give the artificial respirations. Breathing. Single rescuer should begin CPR with 30 chest compressions followed by 2 breaths. If there are 2 rescuers, then after every 15 compressions, you can give 1 breath. So more number of people are available, the more effectively you can give the CPR. Now let us look into the first aid for heat and cold illnesses. When an athlete trains in hot and humid environment, he is prone for developing some heat related illnesses like heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Heat stroke is more fatal, whereas heat exhaustion can be seen commonly in athletes, those who are playing in hot and humid environment. On top of it, if there is pre-exercise dehydration, then also these illnesses can occur. And cold illnesses can be seen when an athlete is training in cold environments or winter months, or in winter sports you can find cold illnesses. They are hypothermia, a decrease in temperature of the skin, and frostbite. So we'll learn about the first aid in the next slides. What is heat exhaustion? Heat exhaustion is nothing but a moderate illness characterized by inability to sustain adequate cardiac output resulting from strenuous physical exercise and environmental heat stress. The symptoms usually include profound weakness and exhaustion, and often dizziness, syncope, that is loss of consciousness, muscle cramps, nausea, and a core temperature below 104 degrees Fahrenheit with excessive sweating and flushed appearance. So, how do you provide first aid to heat exhaustion? First, remove him from activity. Stop the activity. Then, take off all the equipment and place the athlete in a cool and shaded environment. Fluids should be given orally. Core temperature and vital signs like pulse rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure can be assessed serially. The athlete should be cooled by ice immersion and ice towels. Although rapid recovery is typical, athletes should not be allowed to practice or compete for the remainder of the day. That is, that day you should provide him rest. Looking into heat stroke. Heat stroke is a medical emergency. Medical care has to be obtained at once. Like, you have to call the ambulance first. A delay in treatment can be fatal. Heat stroke is characterized by a very high body temperature, that is more than or equal to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and the athlete likely will be still be sweating profusely at the time of collapse, or may have hot dry skin, which indicates failure of primary temperature regulating mechanism. That is, in heat stroke, athlete may be either sweating or he may become hot and dry. So if there is no sweating, it indicates that his thermoregulation mechanism has been stopped or failed. What do you do when you identify heat stroke in an athlete? You have to activate the emergency action plan or an ambulance. Then you have to assess the core temperature and vital signs. Immediate cooling of the body with cold water immersion or using cold wet ice towels on a rotating basis. You have to frequently remove the clothing, remove the towel and then add the new towel. So, where do you assess the core temperature? This is very important. A rectal temperature with a rectal thermometer can give you accurate core temperature compared to your axillary thermometers or oral thermometer, etc. So, once you have started cooling, when the athlete is cool to touch and the temperature is lower to 38 degrees, stop all the cooling procedures. But still, you have to send him to the medical center or hospital. So, if the athlete is conscious, you can give him fluids also, like fluids as well as electrolytes, like water or lemonade, etc. Now let us look into the cold illnesses. What is hypothermia? Hypothermia is due to decreased core temperature. It can be graded into mild, moderate and severe based on the temperature, core body temperature. How to provide first aid to hypothermic athlete? Seek medical help immediately because it's also an emergency if the temperature is less. Then remove wet or damp clothing. You have to insulate the athlete. In hyperthermia or in heat stroke, you have to provide cooling to the athlete. And in hypothermia, you have to insulate the athlete with warm dry clothing or blankets. But don't apply heat on him directly. This is very important. You have to cover the head also to insulate so that the body temperature reduces gradually. Move the athlete to a warm environment with shelter from the wind and rain so that the body temperature can rise gradually. Be sure to cover the person's head. That is very important. You have to provide warm, non-alcoholic fluids and foods containing 6 to 8% of carbohydrates to help sustain shivering and for metabolic heat production. This has to be done if the athlete is not unconscious, if the athlete is not having convulsions or fits. Clear? If the athlete is unconscious, you have to transport him quickly to an emergency medical facility, or if he has convulsions also, you have to transfer him to a hospital. And what are the do nots? Do not attempt to rewarm the extremities of the victim on site, that is by using hot water bottles or electric blankets, etc. You should not use on the victim. You have to rewarming, what it does, it heats up the peripheries and it again worsens the hypothermia. If at all rewarming to be done, apply heat only to the trunk and other areas of heat transfer like axilla, chest wall and groin. So on the core body you have to apply, you can apply rewarm, you can do rewarming, but not on the peripheries. And perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation if the victim stops breathing. Due to extreme hypothermia, if he stops breathing, then you can also perform the CPR until the medical aid comes. Now let us learn about the frostbite and how do you give first aid to frostbite. Frostbite is a common injury caused by exposure to extreme cold or by contact with extremely cold objects, especially metal objects. It occurs when tissue temperature falls below the freezing point, that is 0 degrees centigrade or 32 degrees centigrade Fahrenheit. 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Or when the blood flow is obstructed because of extreme cold. In mild cases, the symptoms include inflammation of the skin in patches accompanied by slight pain. Whereas in severe cases, the tissue damage will be more and pain, even the pain producing nerve endings which tell us about pain, they also might be damaged. That's why he may not have pain. Or there could be burning or pricking sensations resulting in blisters. Blisters also can form. What are the common sites? Toes, fingers, ears and nose. These are the common sites because they don't have a strong muscle tissue to produce heat. Where the muscles are there, they can produce heat by means of shivering and all. These are the pictures which tell us about the sites of frostbite. Then the severity of frostbite can be assessed by wind chill index or wind chill chart, where wind and the temperature can be checked through this chart, and in the light blue zone the timing for frostbite can be identified as 30 minutes. If the wind chill index is in the dark blue zone, within 10 minutes frostbite can develop. And if the wind chill index is in the purple zone, the frostbite occurs even earlier, that is within 5 minutes. So with this chart you can assess when the frostbite can occur. Now let us look into the first aid. Move the athletes to the warm area if possible. Gently loosen or remove constricting clothing or jewelry that may restrict his circulation. Loosely cover the affected area with a sterile dressing. It should not be firm here, it should be very loose. Place some gauze between fingers and toes to absorb moisture and prevent them from sticking together. So the moisture that is present in between the webs of the fingers and toes can be prevented by putting some gauze, and quickly transport the victim to an emergency care facility. What are the do nots for frostbite? Do not attempt to rewarm the affected area on site, but do try to stop the area from becoming any colder. That means don't rewarm it immediately, but you can prevent it from getting more colder. Without proper facilities, tissue that has been warmed may refreeze and cause more damage. That's why on-site rewarming is not advised for frostbite. And do not rub area or apply dry heat avoid friction massage. These also you should not do. Like you should not rub the area to produce heat. Do not allow the victim to drink alcohol or smoke. These also can act as dangers in case of frostbite. So, with this, before concluding the session, I want to tell you once again that I have given one video on cardiopulmonary resuscitation. You can go through that and you can follow those steps. So, I hope you have enjoyed my lesson, and with this, I conclude the session. Thank you.